Hello, we are starting our FP challenge tomorrow. I'm so excited about this one. I have been working as hard as I can to put together a giant resource for you with over 245 FP meal ideas. That's right, 245 straight to your email inbox. What we're doing for this challenge is one FP per day. So if you're not used to eating FPs, that's totally okay. You're definitely going to get it. It's going to be, something just to add to your Trim Healthy Mama journal, to be successful long-term mom plan. That's what these FPs are for. I find that a lot of people forget about the FPs and tend to just gravitate towards E's and S's, which are awesome. But don't forget this unsung hero of the Trim Healthy Mama plan. They are wonderful. They can impact your journey in such a positive way. So if you haven't signed up for the challenge yet, here's what you're going to get. And here are the notes that you need to help you be successful in this challenge. What we're doing is one FP per day for the next 7 days. Just any FP you want, or you can follow my schedule. If you sign up at the link, thewellplankitchen.com/FP challenge, you'll immediately get your checklist for the week, what we're doing. For example, tomorrow we're doing breakfast and a fuel pull breakfast. If you don't have anything, that's okay. You can swap it out for a different day if you want. But what I'm sending out tonight, and the reason I wanted to remind you to sign up for this challenge, you will get that checklist immediately. And then I'm sending this out in pieces so it's not overwhelming, because I know sometimes with these challenges I put together these huge free booklets and it's a lot of information. So I'm slowing it down a little bit for this one for the next 7 days. So you're going to tonight get this FP breakfast ideas sheet. There's 1 page of FP breakfast ideas, shake, smoothie, and sipper ideas, another page of shake, smoothie, and sipper ideas, and then the last page is more shake, smoothie, and sipper ideas. All of these are FP ideas that you can use for this challenge, or really use anytime. You can use them anytime at all. But if you sign up, you will be getting this later tonight. So I recommend signing up now so you don't miss anything. If you haven't signed up already, signing up right now will immediately get you the checklist for the challenge. And I'm sending out FP protein ideas. There's a lot that you're going to want to get through email for this challenge. So please sign up for that. Check me out here on video. I'll be on Facebook, YouTube, letting you know what we're doing each day. Now, here are the notes you need for this challenge. This is very, very important. With FPs, choose one as often as you can for a meal, or if you feel like you're really experienced on the plan and you can add 2 together to make sure you're not going over, you can do that. When you combine FPs, you could be in danger of fuel stacking. I don't know if you've heard of fuel stacking before, but fuel stacking is essentially where you combine. I'll use FPs as an example. Let's say I have some notes on some of these. Okay, so like for the French toast, if you use egg whites and you use an FP bread like the Wonderful White Blender bread, you can have a French toast, but you want to limit butter to just 1 teaspoon, right? So let's say you have the Wonderful White Blender bread French toast on page 360 of the Trim Healthy Table book, and you have your 1 teaspoon of butter. And then you go to, and that's an FP. You have 1 teaspoon of butter. You're at the fat limit. You're great. But then you're also like, well, in addition to the French toast, I want to have a smoothie. And the smoothie you choose, let's just say you choose one that has a teaspoon of coconut oil. Well, then you've combined the fat from the coconut oil in the smoothie with the teaspoon of butter you added to your French toast, and that can create an S meal because you have 2 teaspoons of fat instead of the 1 teaspoon limited in your FP. So for the most part, unless you can check recipes carefully enough to make sure that you're not combining 2 sources of fat, or a teaspoon in one recipe and a teaspoon in another recipe, or the same thing can happen with carbs, make sure that you just choose 1 FP from the list. And that's just an easier way to go. Now, something that's free, so to speak, that you can do anytime is, let's say I have trying to think of a good example. Let's say I have I'll go back to the breakfast page. Let's say I have the Eggalicious muffin cups for breakfast, and I'm thinking like, this is good, but I'm still hungry, or this didn't feel like enough. I could saute some spinach in a 1 light spray of oil. I could have I could slice some cucumbers or celery and have some veggies with it to kind of round it out and make it more robust. I could also, and I'm so sorry about that noise. I could also make as an addition to that, if I'm careful with the fat, I can have 8 ounces of unsweetened almond milk with a scoop of THM protein powder. That's a quick FP snack that I have all the time. So that's something you can add to fill you up, help you last a little longer between meals, but we really do want to get those focus on those FPs that try to choose one per recipe. Veggies are definitely the best choice. The next thing for this challenge, we still want to space our meals 3 to 4 hours apart, even though we're having FPs. So FPs are not necessarily a license to just eat them all day long, constantly grazing. One of the great things about THM that makes it work so well, in my opinion, and as a coach, I've been on plan since the original book came out 9 years ago. I've been a certified THM coach since the coaching program started. I have seen over and over and over again that meal timing and spacing is one of the key components to success on THM. I have women come through boot camp all the time. And if you're interested in boot camp, I am opening registration. It's the wellplannedkitchen.com/THM bootcamp. But in boot camp, I have people come through all the time who've been on plan for a long time, but they stop losing. And one of several keys that I teach and focus on is timing, because when you refocus on the timing, a lot of times you're getting the spacing you need to avoid accidental crossovers and fuel stacking, and it helps you avoid grazing, and we start to see better results that way. So focus on your timing. Make sure you choose just one at a time. And my last note for you before we jump in tomorrow, and again, if you don't have the stuff to make this, you could scramble some egg whites and just like a tiny spray of coconut oil or a tiny bit of butter. You could, what else could you do for an FP? 000 yogurt. If you have fat-free Greek yogurt, you could do something quick and easy if you don't have ingredients to make one of the things on these 4 pages that you'll be getting through your email tonight. You definitely could. But I will say this. I am a human, so I know that these are FP recipes. I put notes next to a lot of them, and it took so many hours to put this together. I tried to put a note on each section to please be sure to follow FP instructions on the recipes, but I need you to be aware and know that when you're looking at the THM books, a lot of times there's recipes that say you can do it the S way, the E way, or the FP way. So I just want to remind you, please, please, please make sure you follow the FP instructions to make sure you're getting an FP meal in. And you might not help to review the guide. It might help, to review the guidelines for an FP. Remember, FPs are pulling the carb fuel and they're pulling the fat fuel. So you want to make sure to get, a small amount of fat and a small amount of carbs. You want to follow the THM guidelines for those. We're not overloading either of those in these meals. We're pulling them back to have a healthy, slimming, smaller meal. So that's what the FPs are. And by smaller, I don't mean in volume, because you could add veggies and I had an FP today. I had a big bowl of cauliflower rice and some diced chicken breasts, and I seasoned it all really well. And I was stuffed just with those 2 things. And I only had that because I had frozen shredded chicken breasts and I had frozen cauliflower rice. And I threw them together in about 5 minutes. I just defrosted both in the microwave and then heated them up. I seasoned the cauliflower rice pretty well. And I did a little squirt of coconut aminos in there. And it was really tasty, really fast, but I wasn't hungry at all because I bulked up on the veggies. So if you are hungry, if you're feeling hungry, bulking up on veggies is great. What I mean by smaller is just pulling back on the fuel. So you're not going to have a lot of fat. You're not going to have a lot of carbs. We're just having lighter meals. So that's what these FPs are. So I'm so excited for you to join me in this challenge tomorrow. It's going to be pretty awesome. We're starting with an FP breakfast. I will be going live throughout this challenge just to make sure everybody sees my posts, because a certain social media platform does not like to show my written posts. So we're going to be going live over video instead. But you can grab your breakfast and smoothies and shake ideas at the wellplannedkitchen.com/FP challenge. If you sign up, you'll immediately get that checklist, and then you will get this later tonight with tons of ideas for you. And I'll be sending emails just about every day throughout this challenge with more FP meal ideas. When you're done, you will have a booklet with about 245. I think there's a couple more in there of those FP meal ideas to use throughout your THM journey. So I hope it's a blessing to you. I certainly worked hard on it. I hope it helps you out. And I hope you have a great night. I will talk to you tomorrow.